Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachanam pangam langyate girim yat kripatamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam Paramanandam Madhavam. So the verse 56 is part of the instructions that have been given by Narad Muni to Dhruva in terms of the devotional practices that he needs to follow to achieve his goal, which at this point is a materialistic goal. He wants to have material opulence. Narad Muni is nevertheless instructing him in devotional service, but promising him material gains out of it. And again, this is not Narad Muni deceiving Dhruva or misdirecting him, because one can approach the Lord for everything, and the Lord reciprocates. Of course, the Lord gives a lot more than what the person approaches for. But yes, in the Bhagavatam, it is recommended that whether it is for material gains, whether it is for liberation, or whether it is for devotional service, the recommendation is to approach the Lord. Okay, so with verse 56. Dravmayam archam Shrityabadishu varchaye Abratatma munihi shanto Yatvan mitavanyabhu. It is possible to worship a form of the Lord made of physical elements, such as earth, water, pulp, wood, and metal. In the forest, one can make a form with no more than earth and water and worship him according to the above principles. A devotee who has full control over his self should be very sober and peaceful, and must be satisfied simply by eating whatever fruits and vegetables are available in the forest. So in the previous verse, Narad Muni had recommended deity worship. He had said that one should offer to the Lord water, garlands, flowers, fruits, tulasi. And Dhruva might object that there is no temple in the forest over here. There is no deity. So whom do I worship? So Narad Muni is giving him the solution for that. So he's telling Dhruva that in the forest you can make from earth and water, and we actually see that in simpler settings the deities are shaped very roughly using mud and water, and sometimes they're painted, sometimes they're not. So in the 11th canto, 27th chapter, part of Uddhav Gita, Krishna tells to Uddhav that the deity form of the Lord can appear in 8 varieties. Can be stone, wood, metal, earth, paint, sand, jewels, or the mind. All of them are bona fide. So here Narad Muni is saying earth, with earth, using water, you can create a deity. Such deities are generally temporary deities. So they are created for the purpose of worshipping, and then after that they are consecrated in a holy place, either in a river or they're buried back in the earth. Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he says that the important factor is that the devotee should be regulated. So Narad Muni, in addition to talking about the process of deity worship is also talking about how the devotee should conduct himself. So he says that should be sober and pure, peaceful, and must be with vanya bhuk. So one should not eat excessively. So as we know in Nectar of Instruction, excessive attraction to food is one of the downfalls of a devotee, right? Atyahara prayaschascha. So atyahar, ahar is food, atya means too much food. And the reason is, of course, that too much food is sense gratification, construed as sense gratification. And also it weakens one's control. Right, in Mahabharata, when Drupad, he was trying to get revenge from Dronacharya. So he was approaching various Brahmins, saying that, help me do a yajna by which I can take my revenge from Dronacharya. And the Brahmins all rejected him, saying, this is activities in the mode of ignorance, we can't do it. And then finally he finds a Brahmin, and he again approaches him with the same. And he said, I can't do it, but my brother will do it. And then Drupad says, how can you be sure that your brother will do it? He says that because one day while we were walking in the forest, there was a fruit that had fallen on the ground. And then I noticed that my brother, he picked it up and ate it. So he did not bother to find out where the fruit has come from. He did not bother to offer it, but he simply ate it. So by that I know that he has no control on his senses. He's greedy, and you're a king, so you can definitely offer him something. And he was right. When Drupad goes and promises him lots of wealth, then his brother readily agrees. And so he's the one who does the yajna in which Drishtadumna and Draupadi are born. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when the 26 qualities of the devotees are being enumerated, then Mitubhuk, or one who has control on the hunger, or one who eats less, is there as given as one of the 26 qualities. Okay, next verse, 57. Swechhavata achintane jamaya karishatye uttam shlokas tadhyaye dhridayan gamam. My dear Dhruva, besides worshipping the deity and chanting the mantra 3 times a day, you should meditate upon the transcendental activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different incarnations, as exhibited by his supreme will and personal potencies. So Narad Muni had spoken about mantra ucharan, jap. He had spoken about deity worship. Now he talks about Leela Smaran. So he is asking, so Leela Smaran is a more advanced form of meditation. The meditation generally starts with Nam, with the name of the Lord, then Guna, qualities, then Roop, the form, and then finally Leela. So Narad Muni has already asked Dhruva to meditate on Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which is the name. And he has been talking about the qualities. Worshipping the deities is considered to be Rupa Smaran, because the deities present the form. And now Narad Muni is saying that you also worship on the pastimes of the Lord. So Sridhar Swami, when he comments on this verse, he says that Narad Muni uses the word karishyati, which is future tense. And because Dhruva appeared very early in the creation of the universe, right? So this is Swayambhavu Manu, right? The very first mantra, right after Brahma creates the universe. And Dhruva appears very, very early. So Sridhar Swami says that the Lord has not appeared in many incarnations. And there are not many pastimes that have actually occurred. So he is saying that you meditate on the pastimes that the Lord will perform in the future as they are given in the scriptures. So the scriptures, because they are complete, they talk about the past and the present as well as the future. So the future incarnations of the Lord and the pastimes that he will perform, they are already recorded in the scriptures. Just like even now we know that after 400 and some thousand years, Kalki will appear, right? Future incarnation, but the scriptures tell us there. Srila Prabhupada says that all this is recommended in Satyuga, the Leela Smaran, etc. In the present day and age, he says what is recommended is Nam Smaran, that Mantrupasana, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Because Leela Smaran is fairly advanced, and only when the devotees have full control on the purity of the mind, then they can start meditating on the Leelas. Otherwise, it just becomes bewildering. Okay, next verse, 58. Paricharya bhagavato yavatya purva sevitaha tamantra hridayaneva pariyonjam mantra muryate. One should follow the footsteps of previous devotees regarding how to worship the Supreme Lord with the prescribed paraphernalia. Or one should offer worship within the heart by reciting the mantra to the personality of Godhead, who is non-different from the mantra. So, quick summary of the instructions that has been given to Dhruva by Narad. So first in verse 55 and the 56th verse, the first half of the 56th verse, Narad Muni instructs Dhruva to prepare a temporary deity of the Lord using earth and water, and then worship the deities with pure water and garland and fruits and vegetables, and offer tulasi. Then in the second half of the 56th to the 58th verse, Narad Muni talks about the conduct of the devotee. In this case, conduct of Dhruva. Because as we know that the worship of the deity is just one part of the process of worship, right? There are 5 parts. Ilya is one part of it. But Swadhyay is another part of it. Then Upadan, getting the paraphernalia, is another part of it. So similarly, one part of it is how to conduct yourself. So Narad Muni gives him 4 instructions in this. He says that you be abrata atma, which means you control your mind and speech. Verse 56. Then he says shanta, you be peaceful. Again in verse 56. Then mituvanya bhuk, that you control your hunger, eat little bit. Again in 56. And then avatar charita chintaya, that you meditate on the pastimes of the Lord. So in verse 57. Now in this verse, Narad Muni gives further instructions which are kind of overarching, which covers all the set of previous instructions. So he says, Yavatya, that all this you do as it is prescribed in the scriptures. Now, Dhruva is not going to be reading scriptures over there because, firstly, he doesn't have access to the scriptures and he's a child. But the reason Narad Muni is saying this is that what I have told you is as per the scriptures. So you follow what I'm telling you. Don't make any changes. So don't say that, well, actually, Narad Muni meant this, but there are extenuating circumstances, so maybe I can do something else, right? And especially in case of Dhruva, he's all alone by himself. So it is easy for him to get lost in this mental speculation. So Narad Muni is saying, Yavatya, that only as it is prescribed in the scriptures, Purva Sevita, following the footsteps of the previous acharyas. So again, he's reinforcing this point that do what I tell you, right? So Dhruva might say that, well, when I was in my palace, then I know that deity worship was done in a slightly different way. And of course, it would be done as per the scriptures because they're bona fide. But Narad Muni is cautioning that don't get bewildered by all those thoughts, that Purva Sevita, that following the footsteps of the previous acharyas, which means as I have given you. Third point he says is mantra. So mantra here, of course, means the chanting of the mantra, but also means that the relevance of the mantra in deity worship. So we, or most of us at least, do not do it, even though it's recommended, because it's a little bit difficult to do. But the recommended way of deity worship is that when you offer any upchar, then there are two mantras that you have to recite. You have to recite the mantra for the upchar and the mool mantra of the deity. So let's assume you're offering flowers to Krishna. So the upchar mantra for flowers is Esha Pushpa, or if there are many flowers, Etani Pushpani. So that's the mool mantra. That's the upachar mantra. And the mool mantra for Krishna is Klim Krishnaya Namah. So when you offer, you say Esha Pushpa Klim Krishnaya Namah, or Esha Pushpa Klim Gaurvaya Namah. So in that way, the upachar is connected to the deity. So this is also an understanding that you offer, when Narad Muni is saying that you worship the deities with the mantras, he's saying that you connect the offering to the deity. So because Dhruva has been given the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, so Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya is also the mool mantra for Shaligram Shila, or Om Namo Narayana. Both of them are mool mantras. So he's saying you chant the appropriate mantras, and then finally he's saying Hridaneva. Hridaneva is within the heart. Two ways to understand this instruction. One is that, again, in advanced deity worship, the worship of the deity happens 3 times. First, it is manaseva. So let's assume that you're offering bhoga to the deity. So the pujari is first recommended to sit and meditate on offering the bhoga to the deities eating it, and the pujaris can be sitting and offering chamar or tambul. So that is the first part. Second part is through mantras, that you basically chant the necessary mantras, and through mantropasana you worship the deity. And the third is you actually offer. So you take the bhoga, you put it on the table, you offer it to the deities. You can show the mudras. There are mudras that the pujaris can show to invite the Lord to come and eat, to enjoy the food, to do achman. So you can do that. And these three together are considered to be elaborate temple worship, elaborate deity worship that's generally done in temples. And actually, any one of the three can be also done. So Prabhupada later on will say that you can actually do even just mental worship. So in this verse, Krishna is addressed as Mantra Murtaye. So Mantra Murtaye means that one who is non-different from the mantra. So this is the basis of mantropasana. So just like we offer a chamar physically to the deity, when we say that idam chamaram klim nityanandaya namah, then that is mantropasana. Because when you say klim nityanandaya namah, then Lord Nityananda is manifest. When you say idam chamaram, then the chamar is there. So since they're both non-different, that is a way of worshipping. Prabhupada in the purport says that it is recommended here that even if one cannot arrange to worship the forms of the Lord with all the recommended paraphernalia, one can simply think about the form of the Lord and mentally offer everything recommended in the Shastras. So important to understand here is that any form of the mantra of the worship that you're doing has to be according to the scriptures. Right? So just because anybody is doing mental worship does not mean that just anybody worships anyway. Right? In India, some people will say that, well, in my mind, I was offering rasgullas to the Lord, and then this happened and that happened. And it becomes a little bit just emotions. It's more of emotions. It's not much, or in most cases, maybe there are some advanced, but most cases it's just emotions. So the point is that even if you're doing mental worship, then it should be done according to the scriptures. And then Prabhupada said the story of the Brahman who worshipped the Lord within his mind is given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. He does not give the story over here, but you must have read it in Nectar of Devotion. It appears in the chapter of hearing and remembering, the 10th chapter actually, NODM. It's a sweet pastime. There's a Brahman who was poor, and he would basically sit and do the whole deity worship in his mind, very, very punctiliously. And then one day he was cooking kheer. So when he would cook, he would actually do the whole cooking in his mind. So not that in his mind he would say that I have kheer, but he would actually cook. And so one day he was cooking kheer in his mind, and then he was running behind in his schedule for worshipping. So he took the kheer, he started to offer it to the deities, and then he said, maybe it's too hot. So he put his finger in the kheer, and this is still in his mind, and the kheer was hot. So his finger in real life got burnt. So Krishna was watching this, and he started laughing when he saw that. So and Radharani says, what's going on? Why are you laughing? And then Krishna says, I'm just touched by my devotee. So he sends an airplane to the Brahman to get him back to Vaikuntha. Okay. Next two verses, 59 and 60. Evam kayena manasa vachasa cha manogatam Paricharmano Bhagavan Bhaktimad Paricharyaya Pumshanamayanam Samyo Bhajatam Bhavavardhanaha Shreho Dishatya Bhimatam Yadharma Dishudehina. Anyone who thus engages in the devotional service of the Lord seriously and sincerely with his mind, words, and body, and who is fixed on the activities of the prescribed devotional methods, is blessed by the Lord according to his desire. If a devotee desires material, religiosity, economic development, sense gratification, or liberation from the material world, he is awarded these results. So Narad concludes the instructions of worshipping the Lord, and he has instructed Dhruva to worship the Lord with his mind. So he first instructed him on Astanga Yoga, then with his words, he gave him the mantra to recite, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, and then with his body, puja, so deity worship, right? So full engagement of body, mind, and words. Now, Narad Muni, as an expert preacher, he ends by bringing this back to what Dhruv is aspiring, right? So he says, Dharma Dishu Dehina, that all desires, whether they are spiritual or material, will be fulfilled. Dhruva is not much interested in spiritual endeavors, but Narad Muni, as a bona fide spiritual master, is giving him a process that will fulfill all his desires. So he says that Amayanam Samyag, that all your sincere desires will be fulfilled. And this also refutes the misconception that is there, this notion of Daridra Narayan. Srila Prabhupada would get very upset with this term, Daridra Narayan. It was actually it wasn't coined by Mahatma Gandhi, it was coined by somebody else, but Mahatma Gandhi actually popularized it. And his intention, of course, was for the upliftment of the Daridra. He's saying you can see the Lord in the Daridra there. But then the term started being used to indicate that Daridra Narayan means that those who worship Narayan become Daridra, that the devotees of Lord Vishnu are poor. And Prabhupada says that how can that be possible? That if Lakshmi Devi is serving Lord Vishnu with full chastity, then she will be more than happy to bestow all opulences. Prabhupada will make this point that by nature, Lakshmi Devi is chapal. She is a woman, so she is flickering. So she stays in one house and goes away, and stays in another house and goes away. That's the nature of wealth. People become wealthy and people lose wealth. So if you look historically, we can see that happening over and over again. But as a chaste wife, she never leaves the side of her husband. So in a house where Lord Vishnu is being worshipped, Lakshmi Devi will never leave that house. Devotees generally, they don't care much for material wealth. So they'd like to live simple lives. They like to keep their lives focused on devotional service. So that's why people misinterpret it. Vishwanath Chakravarti comments that Narad Muni, when he says Dehinam, embodied, he uses the plural to indicate that this is not just true for humans, but for anybody who is embodied, whether the person is a sura, an asura, or a pashu. So it is true for all of them. Next verse. 61. Viraktaschendriyaratao bhakti yogena bhuyasa tam nirantar bhavena bhajeta didi vimuktaye. If one is very serious about liberation, he must stick to the process of transcendental loving service, engaging 24 hours in a day in the highest stage of ecstasy. And he must certainly be aloof from all activities of sense gratification. So Narad Muni at the end of the day is a devotee. So in previous verse, he had assured Dhruva that you worship the Lord and you will get all material wealth. But without giving him complete instructions, Narad Muni would not serve his duty as a guru. So this verse is actually a definition of Shuddha Bhakti. And if you analyze it, it actually combines the definition of Bhakti given in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we have the verse Anibhalashita Shunyam Jnana Karma Dhyana Vratam Anukulena Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Uttamam. And in Bhagavatam, the first canto, we have the definition of Bhakti Savai Pumsham Parudharmo Ito Bhakti Radok Sajay Ahitukya Pratiyata Yatma Suprasiddhyati. So here Narad Muni says that Viraktas Chendriya Ratau, detached from all sense gratification. So this is Anyabilashata Shunyam Jnana Karmadi Anavrutam. All be without desires for any sense gratification. Then he says Bhakti Yogena Bhuyasa, that one must practice devotional service with great seriousness. So this is Parodharma. Then Tam Nirantar, without any interruption. Right? So this is Ahituki Apratihata. Then he says Bhavena. Bhavena means with ecstasy. This is Suprasiddhyati. Then Narad Muni says Bhajet Adha. Worship only Krishna directly. Right? So this is Anukulena Krishna Anushilana. Right? Worship only Krishna directly. And then Vimuktayate. Vimuktayate is to attain the position of Krishna in Prema. This is the prayojan. This is what it will get. And Srila Prabhupada says that the activities on the path of Apavarga up to the stage of Dharma Artha Kam are meant for sense gratification. But when it comes to the stage of Moksha, the impersonalist liberation, the practitioner wants to merge into the existence of the Supreme. But this is also sense gratification. When one goes above the stage of liberation, however, yet one becomes one with the associates of the Lord to render devotional loving service. This is technically known as Vimukti. Right? So Vimuktaya. So Vimuktaya essentially is the prayojan of Shuddha Bhakti. So at this point, Narad Muni is well aware of the fact that these instructions will not take any effect on Dhruva, because he is Dhruva. He's determined, single-minded that I need material opulence, right? That's what he wants. But what the Guru does is that they plant seeds in the heart of the devotee. And when the time is right, those seeds will fructify. So even though at this point Dhruva is not going to be listening to these instructions, but the instruction will nevertheless be there in his heart. And then we will see later on that when he gets purified by the process of practicing bhakti, this seed will germinate at that time. So the art of preaching, or the interaction of the guru with the disciple, is very much like this, that they will give instructions for immediate relief, but they will also plant seeds in the heart of the devotee, knowing that at some point they will fructify. Right? Because if you look at Srila Prabhupada's lectures, he would say that you have to go back to Godhead. Right? And he was saying to disciples who were very, very early in the process. But at the same point, he was also instructing them, like, don't smoke cigarette, don't eat, don't eat. So just basic etiquette, he was also instructing them. And then at the same time, he was saying that you need to go back to Godhead. Right? So that's the art of preaching, that you preach that which is immediately relevant, but while the heart of the person is open, then you also plant the seeds that will fructify later on. Next verse, 62. Ityuktastam parikramya pranamya cha nirpabhakaha yayau madhuvanam punyam hares charan charchitam. When Dhruva Maharaj, the son of the king, was thus advised by the great sage Narad, he circumambulated Narad, his spiritual master, and offered him respectful obeisances. Then he started for Madhuvan, which is always imprinted with the lotus footprints of Lord Krishna, and which is therefore specially auspicious. So one point, of course, over here is that Krishna appears in the 28th Chatur Yuga, in the Dwapar Yuga. And Dhruva has appeared millions of years before the appearance of Krishna. Right? First Manvantra, Satyug over there. So why is Maitreya saying that Madhuvan is imprinted with the lotus footprints of Lord Krishna? So Vishwanath Chakravarti explains that places like Vrindavan are eternal, so they do not get destroyed when the material world is destroyed. So the footprints that Maitreya is referring to are those that were there from previous day of Brahma, when that pastime happened. Okay, we'll do one more verse, and after that, stop for any discussion. Verse 63. Tapovanam gate tasmin pravishtoantapuram manipuram munihi Aritarankarajana Sukhashena Uvachatam. After Dhruva entered Madhuvan forest to execute devotional service, the great sage Narad thought it wise to go to the king to see how he was faring within the palace. When Narad Muni approached, the king received him properly, offering him due obeisances. After being seated comfortably, Narad began to speak. So in the next 8 verses, we will see the conversation between Maharaj Uttanpada and Narad Muni. So Dhruva headed towards Madhuvan. I think they're saying, the acharyas say that the distance was about close to 300 kilometers. So while he headed towards Madhuban to execute devotional service, and Nad Muni, of course, doesn't have to walk. He can travel at the speed of mind. He went to the palace of Maharaj Utanpad, which is in very close to current day Kanyakubcha, Kanpur, so city, I think Vittur, right outside Kanyakubcha. So he went over there to speak to Utanpad. Okay, so let me pause here and see if there's any discussion.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat Pranam, Prabhu. Prabhu, I have a question regarding that like Srila Prabhupada writes in the book, like generally Lord Shiva devotees will be rich and Vaishnavas are poor, whereas here it's mentioned like obviously Lakshmi Devi is serving Lord Narayana, and it's not necessary that Lord Vishnu devotees have to be poor. But Prabhupada, I remember many times, right? Generally, Srila Prabhupada writes, like, not only Prabhupada, like any story we see that once upon a time a poor Brahmana was living nearby. So most of them are Vaishnavas, I mean Vishnu, deity worship or Vishnus. So how do we understand that? And also, if after this, I have another question. So can you please comment on this, Prabhu?
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you. It's a good question. Prabhupada would basically make this observation that so at one point he said that Lakshmi Devi is waiting to serve Vaishnavas,
Right.
but the Vaishnavas have no time for her because they are so busy worshipping Vishnu. So it's a more it's a more metaphorical way of saying that because the devotees find so much satisfaction in the devotional service that they're performing, they look upon material wealth as irrelevant and mostly as an obstacle. The recommendation given by the Goswamis is that one should have enough wealth to live comfortably, but not more than that. Right? Because if you have very little wealth, then your life will be miserable.
Right.
And unless you're a very advanced devotee, it's difficult to perform bhakti. And if you have too much wealth, then you will get consumed by that. So the general recommendation is that just have enough wealth to live comfortably, which is what is the situation of most of the Vaishnavas that we see. Now, having said that, in the scriptures, of course, we have examples of both. We have examples of personalities like Ambrish Maharaj, who are who is the emperor of the whole world, and Sudama Brahman, who has nothing to there. So whatever the devotee sees as helping their devotional service, they take to that, whether it's wealth or whether it's lack of wealth. Srila Prabhupada had a disciple who was very, very much into money, and but very, very dedicated to Prabhupada. So I was reading in hearing in one of the memories that basically when he took to Krishna consciousness, he had nothing. He had just this strong desire to make wealth, but otherwise he was starting from zero. And now he is the owner of one of the largest hotel chains in India. He continues to be a very fixed up devotee. But that's what he wanted. He wanted wealth, and he got wealth. He was mature enough to use it for um, for Vaishnav Seva. He lets a lot of devotees stay in his hotels at different chains. He's a part owner of the Taj group of hotels. So he lets devotees stay there at different places there.
If somebody doesn't have, I can wait, or else I can ask another question.
Go ahead, Prabhu. You have the floor.
Thank you. Another thing is that like we hear many times we should offer our mind. We should offer our mind to engage our mind in Krishna consciousness. Like we see now here, this Brahmana, which is mentioned in Nectar of Devotion, like he was making a kheer, sweet rice in the mind. So how far it is practically applicable for a sadhaka devotee like me? So, for example, I want to make something tomorrow. Is it recommended, or is it like how practically applicable in these days? Or it is like also you should one side we hear that we should offer our mind. What is the thoughts about you in this regarding?
It's not very practical. You're right about that. That Manas Seva is not very practical because we don't have that purity of the mind. Nevertheless, the same principle applies that when practicing devotees are given instructions, they are given instructions that they can practice based on the current adhikar, but the goal is also given, and the process will automatically eventually drive them to that stage. So let me give you an example that earlier on, when I was doing deity worship in the temple, then it was just about, so as in also in your temple also there must be a pujari manual, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3, and that's what I was doing, because I was simply learning. Do step 1, do Achman, and do this, and and follow through. Very mechanical. And then after a few years, when that process became more natural, then the other aspects of the worship started manifesting, right? Then this notion of that now I'm doing this for the pleasure of the Lord, right? Mm-hmm. That notion begins to come. Or if you're offering cooking bhoga, then you're cooking with the consciousness that the Lord will enjoy. Earlier on you're cooking against the clock, that the 7 o'clock offering has to go, right? And if you're cooking, the pujari is opening the window and yelling at you, is it ready? Is it ready? And you're at, yes, Prabhu, just a minute, right? That's the focus, that you're trying to get you ready. But then as you become more mature, then you start pacing yourself, right? You start cooking with the understanding that the Lord will appreciate it. Or if you're a pujari doing the offering and then you're chanting Gayatri, then you're thinking that the Lord is enjoying. So these are glimpses of Manas Puja. Right? They're not there, but they're kind of like the seed is germinating and small shoots are coming up. As we follow the process itself will yield the more advanced. We don't have to strive for it. We can already see that change in our lives. So we know that the change will carry us through to the subsequent stages, as long as we stay true to the process.
Okay. Yes. So adding on this, Prabhu, like I have a like when we offer put a bhoga to the Lord, is it like we necessarily chant Gayatri for mantra? Is it what is the meaning of that? Is it like we should what is actual thing we should do? chanting Gayatri? What is the meaning for? What is necessary?
So chanting the Gayatri is recommended sometimes, and again, frankly speaking, different temples have slightly different standards. In some temples, they recommend the chanting of the 5th and the 7th Gayatri mantra.
Okay.
And in some temples, they recommend chanting all the 7 Gayatri
Yeah.
mantras.
In our temple, we
So,
do first mantra, or depends on if its offering is 10 minutes, we will do only first mantra. If our offering is like 20 minutes, we will do all things, because it is in the afternoon Rajbhog, for example, we do all the 7 mantras. And if it is evening, that is fruits offering, which is 10 minutes, we do only one mantra, like that.
yes. So deity worship is again a little bit different temples, and even in the same temple, different pujaris will do it slightly differently.
Mhm.
So there is the general rules and regulations, and there is specific instantiation of it. I remember we once had Krishna Kshetra Prabhu, who basically was the one that helped in authoring that orange book, right? You must be having that orange book
Right.
in the temple, the 2-volume book for deity worship.
Mhm.
And then, so when he came, then all the pujaris were sitting around him, and we were wanting authoritative answers that, so we started off with basic question that how many times do we offer the incense to the deities?
Mhm.
And he said, sometimes it's 4 to 7, sometimes it's just 7,
Right.
sometimes it is 4 to 3, 7. And then we said, yeah, but how many, what is said in Hari Bhakti Vilas? What is it that is recommended? And he says that what is recommended is what is the standard that has been set up in your temple.
Okay.
Because then the deities, they expect that. Now, of course, the standard has to have some level of resonance, but they say that once the standard is applied consistently, then the deities get used to it. They start, just like home deities, right? Home worship is a lot more simpler. The deities will relish it as much because that's what they begin to appreciate there. So fidelity to the process that has been given, whatever that process is in the temple, and then sincerity in executing it. I think these are the magic keys for the locks for at least in terms of deity worship, overall process also. Specifically for deity worship, because deity worship is very, very procedural. So especially in deity worship, the fidelity to the process is important. Because otherwise pujaris can become very, very creative in their own rasa with the deity. Right? They will start saying, well, my Mother Mohan likes this, and I'd like to worship him like this. And pretty soon you have a whole different deity worship program going on.
Right. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Good questions. Anybody else?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So you mentioned this example of the devotee who is in the business and the hotel chain. So that just brought one question. There was a discussion yesterday only about Daivi Varnashram, how the goal of all Varnas is the same, and goal and also what they achieve is the same if they do it in that Varna sincerely practice devotional service. So with that understanding, and also we see in the process given followed in ISKCON, we have the after Harinam there is Brahmanical initiation and encouragement to practice of course, this Brahmanical initiation, how to understand this aspect of that we follow, and also being honest to our inclinations and nature, because everybody has, like this point came up, like whatever may be their Brahmanically initiated, they have an inclination to administer, then, or every time they see profit in all things, even in temple, if they have to do some service, try to get the maximize things. So that how to understand and that versus the natural propensities and this aspect of Brahmanical initiation given.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Good question. So I think one of the assumptions that you're making is that being a Brahman means that you have the inclination for deity worship only, right? Which is not really true. Brahmanical initiation is given as a sign of increased sincerity. So after Harinam, when the spiritual master sees that the disciple is steady, sincere, that he is following the regulative principles, so then they get the Gayatri mantras, they get to do cooking, deity worship. However, it does not mean that Brahmanical initiation is only for deity worship, right? Because even if you look at the next stage, so there are devotees who after Brahmanical initiation, they take sannyas. And there are some sannyasis that do deity worship. There are some sannyasis that do not do deity worship, right? Like Rampad Maharaj, he has never had a deity. He traveled so much that he felt he could not serve deities, so he does not do deity worship, right? His service is preaching. And there are other sannyasis, that the famous pastime of Srila Prabhupada instructing two sannyasis with different instructions. One, he said, you stay and you preach, you stay and you serve the deities. The other, he said, don't stay in one place for more than 3 days, travel and preach, right? And the Shrutikirti Prabhu said that, why are you giving them such instructions? Similarly, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mahaprabhu gave similar instructions to 3 of his associates. Like one, he says you travel, one, he says you preach, and one, he says you just marry and you have a family. So when one is practicing bhakti at all stages, unless one is at a very, very high stage, at almost all stages, then the swabhav plays a very important role, right? So you can imagine sannyasis are being asked to execute devotional service according to their nature, right? And in the spiritual world, we see perfected souls, they are executing devotional service according to their nature. And that's where the shelter of the Guru is important. The constant touch with the Guru is important, because we may have some understanding of our swabhav, or we may think we know it, but we may not always be objective about it. But the Guru Maharaj, he is able to discern that this person is strong over here and weak over there. And then you can see amongst your own God brothers and God sisters, they may be engaged differently. Some of them may be engaged in Shastric study, somebody may be engaged in management, somebody may be engaged in teaching. So just a way for the spiritual master to get the person to maximize their ability, right? So somebody who's not very much into Shastric study and he gets the instruction that do Bhakti Vaibhava, do Bhakti Vedanta, he'll have difficult time doing it. Because of that, his bhakti will suffer. Right? So that's what the Guru Maharaj does. Devi Varnashram, as you were pointing out, is kind of in that same area. Like Devi Varnashram is that one takes a Varna and an ashram based on one's nature. And Devi Varnashram is that according to one's Varna and ashram, one worships the Lord. Right. So my nature is I would like to be a grahastha, I would like to have a family, so I am in a grahastha ashram. And then while in the grahastha ashram, what is the best way that I can serve the Lord? By worshipping deities at home, by supporting the temple financially, by serving devotees, right? Somebody else's nature may be more renounced. They want to stay as brahmacharis. And then they serve the Lord in that one ashram, right? So that's how it's called Devi Varnashram. And it is essentially dovetailing one's swabhav to the process of bhakti.
Okay. Yeah, I think the confusion or what I was not properly able to articulate to myself was this Varna aspect. Like we have inclinations to do some certain activities, propensities, and also this we take Brahminical initiation, and then the Brahminical qualities need to be cultivated, and so is there some sort of apparent conflict in that focus? Because we need to, in the Grahastha ashram, if I am say having certain Varna propensities, and also practicing Brahminical initiated, and trying to practice Brahminical qualities. So how does that work?
Yeah, I see what you mean. So you're saying is that once the devotees get the second initiation, which is called Brahman initiation, then they should start acting like Brahmins, right? The qualities of the Brahmins, which is Patan Patan, Yajan Yajan, Dan Pratigra. That's not my understanding. So the term Brahman is used not so much for the Varna, as opposed to describing one who is in touch with the Brahman. So that there's a wonderful essay, well, it's a speech actually by Bhakti Siddhanta on Kiba Vaishnava. Right? It's about the whole Brahman Vaishnava debate, right? And he talks about Vaishnavas and Brahmans. So he makes this point that it's not really the Brahman Varna that is talked about in terms of one's advancement. It's more in terms of Brahminical qualities, and more describing the situation of in touch with spirituality, right? So it is more like you're one step closer to transcendence. So that way it's considered to be Brahman. Like the literal meaning of Brahman is one who knows Brahman, right? That's the literal meaning of Brahman. It's more in that context, as opposed to a Brahman who does specific, like as per the what's the other word for Varnas? One is Devi Varna, the other is as per the Vedic,
Yes,
as per the more Karma Varnashram, right? It's not so much denoting those qualities, but more denoting the quality of spiritual advancement.
Sure. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, just a comment. It's not this is where we use a smarta brahmana. It's more about rules and regulations. Smarta.
Right. That was the word I was looking for. That there's a difference between the Smarta Brahmans and the initiated Brahmans. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay.
Hare
Thank you for
Krishna,
the
Prabhu.
discussion. Haribol.
Prabhu, just one quick detail, question that I missed. You said in that text number 57, I think, when you were talking about offering, you spoke about one is the actual offering, another is the mantra, and the third one, you said 3 things there that either if one of it could be done or yeah.
Third is the Manas Seva. Right. So in elaborate worship, the pujari will first complete the worship in the mind. Right. So let's assume you're offering bhoga. So the pujari will first sit and meditate on the bhoga being offered, the Lord enjoying the bhoga. Right. So that is Manas Puja. Then they will offer through mantras like Etad Nevedyam, Klim Krishnaya Namaha, right? Through mantras they will offer. They will invoke the deity in the mantra form. And then they will offer, like they will cook something, and that cooking they will offer. So generally these 3 worships are considered to be invoking the various aspects of one's like you see Nagmuni instructing Dhruva that you worship the Lord with your mind, with your words, and with your body. Right? So with your mind is Manas Seva, with your words it's Mantrupasana, and then with your body it is actually the deity worship, the archana that you're doing.
Perfect. Prabhu, one more thing. In that previous verse, when you spoke about that story of Drupada and the Brahmana, so the brother, he didn't have that sense of control, right, for the regarding the tongue. And you made a point about why that was his downfall. I didn't catch that link. That and this was text 56.
Text 56. Let me check. Okay. I'm sorry, Varshan. I actually don't remember. The Brahman story that I told was from the NOD, right? Is that what you're referring to? The one who had offered mentally.
No, the Drupada, he wanted to take a revenge on
the one
Drona.
from Mahabharata. Oh, okay.
Yes,
okay.
from Mahabharata.
Right. And your question was?
The question is, I'm trying to understand, so there the brother says this Brahmana says my brother would do it because he doesn't have a control over his tongue. I mean, he doesn't say, yeah, and then therefore he could do your bidding, right?
Correct. So he equates it with greed. Right, because he said that because he does not have control on his tongue, which is like one step away from being greedy for sense gratification. So that's why he said that I think my brother will do it because he does not have control on his tongue. And Prabhupada says, like, from the tongue everything else starts, which in this case was true. When Drupad approached him, then he became greedy for wealth. Of course, his brother also got into trouble because then he ordered, because the elder brother was not a very expert Brahmin, but the younger brother was. So then he ordered his younger brother to do the yajna. So the poor fellow had to do the yajna on the orders of his brother. Well, that's I guess a corollary. But the point that was made was, yes, that because this person's tongue was uncontrolled, one can understand that he is greedy.
And therefore one may lose one's judgment. Is that, could we say that? Of finding, like saying yes to like the right and the wrong.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very instructive. Thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, so thank you all for the wonderful discussion. Moving on, let's move to verse 64. So this is Narad Muni coming and speaking to Maharaj Uttanpad. Narad Vacha Rajan Kim Dhyayase Dirgham Mukhena Parishoshita Kim Va Narishite Kamo Dharmo Varthena Samyutaha. The great sage Narad inquired, "My dear king, your face appears to be withering up, and you look like you have been thinking something for a very long time. Why is that? Have you been hampered in following a path of religious rites, economic development, and sense gratification?" So Narad is inquiring the cause of the apparent distress of Maharaj Uttanpad. So Maharaj Uttanpad might say that what makes you think that I am in distress? So Narad Muni so Narad Muni does not have to do that, right? He's coming for the benefit of the king, but he still is doing it. He's saying that there is a reason I'm asking you this question. And the reason is mukhena parishushita, that your face is all dried up. And since one's happiness is actually dependent on following the instructions of the Vedas, then the natural the corollary to that is that have you been unable to follow the dharma, arth, or kam? He does not inquire about moksha, right? He just says that have you been unable to follow dharma, artha, or kam? Prabhupada says that Narad Muni did not inquire from the king about his liberation, but only regarding the state management, which is meant for advancement of the three principles of religiosity, economic development, and sense gratification. Since those who engage in such activities are not interested in liberation, Narad did not inquire from the king about this. So Narad Muni, of course, knew everything that is going on, and he will reveal. But he is using this to form a basis of the conversation. So everything that great personalities speak have a lot of import. So in this question, Narad Muni has communicated to Maharaj Uttanpad several things, right? He has communicated to him that not following the Vedas results in unhappiness. He has pointed to him that he is not pursuing the path of moksha. Now, Uttanpad, of course, knows that the Vedas are Chatur Purushas, Dharma, Kam, and Moksha. Narad Muni pointedly does not ask about moksha. So he's indicating to him that that's what I see you investing your energies into dharma, artha, and kam. Even that you have not been able to follow properly, which is why I see that your face is full of distress. Okay, next verse, 65. Rajovacha Sutomi balako brahman straine karunatmana nirvasita panchavarsha sahamatra mahakavi. The king replied, O best of the Brahmanas, I am very much addicted to my wife, and I am so fallen that I have abandoned the all merciful behavior, even to my son, who is only 5 years old. I have banished him and his mother, even though he is a great soul and a great devotee. So, just like Narad Muni in his statement is conveying many messages, Maharaj Uttanpad in his statement is also conveying many messages. So the core message that is coming through is the genuine repentance of the king. So he opens his conversation with this statement. Now Maharaj Uttanpad could have said that I'm worried about my son who is headstrong and immature and has run away from the house. Right? He could have blamed Dhruva that he's Panchavarsha, he's 5 years, but he's so naughty and obstinate that he's run away from the house. Or he could have blamed Suniti, that this mother of Dhruva, she filled his head with all kinds of nonsense. And because of that, the boy ran away from home. Or he could have blamed Suruchi, that this wife of mine, she has no sense of discrimination. And she spoke so harshly to this boy that the poor boy ran away. Or he could have blamed the circumstances, that I don't know how this happened. Just circumstantially, these things happened, that Dhruva took offense and he ran away. I have no idea how this all transpired. Or he could have said that this is a temporary lapse of judgment. He could have said that I made a passing mistake, and because of that, he ran away. But Maharaj Uttanpad does not do any of that. Does not blame Dhruva, does not blame Suniti, does not blame Suruchi, does not blame circumstances, does not blame temporary lapse of judgment. He takes full responsibility, right? So he right away says that I am addicted to the pleasures of a woman, right? So not only is he taking full responsibility, but he is presenting himself in the worst possible light, right? Again, even if he was taking full responsibility, he could have colored it with different tinges, but he's not doing that. He's going down to the root of the root, and he's saying that I am addicted to woman, and because of that, my son has gone away. So the first step in remediation is genuine regret. So despite the previous actions of Maharaj Uttanpad, we can see that he is truly an elevated personality, that he's taking full responsibility. He's saying it is not Dhruva's fault. Why? He's Balak Panchavarsha, right? So he's saying he's just a 5-year-old boy. It is not his fault. So Narad Muni might ask that Dhruva is a small child, but you say that you banished Dhruva. So did he act in an inappropriate way? So Maharaj Uttanpad says, Mahan Kavi. So he is greatly greatly intelligent. So no, he did not do any mistake, but I am akaruna atmana, that I am without mercy, that I did nothing to pacify the distressed son of mine. Right? So why are you akaruna? Right? Narad Muni Maharaj said, why do you say that you're akaruna? He says, because I am strainena, because I am controlled by woman, which is synonymous to saying that I'm controlled by lust. So because I'm controlled by lust, I became akurna. I became hard-hearted, and because I was hard-hearted, my innocent 5-year-old son, who is Mahakavi, who is very intelligent, went away, and I did nothing to stop. Srila Prabhupada said the king said that since he was very much addicted to his wife, he had lost all his mercy. That is the result of being too affectionate towards women. So that is the nature of lust. It is not really strainena. So it's not really the wife or the woman who is the cause of the man becoming hard-hearted. It is the man's attachment to his own sense gratification that makes him hard-hearted. Right? So the woman is simply an object of the man's desire. Because the man is so invested in fulfilling his own desire, which happens to be a woman, he prioritizes that above everything else. Things like compassion and mercy and proper conduct. He prioritizes that this is my need. This needs to go above everything else. And that's what makes the person a karuna. That's what makes the person hard-hearted. So factually, Uttanpad is saying that my being a slave to my own senses is the cause of my high-souled son leaving. Now, from a factual basis, Maharaj Uttanpad had neither banished Dhruva nor had he banished Suniti. Right? He says in the verse that I banished my son and my wife, but he never ordered Dhruva to leave the palace. And Suniti was living in her own palace, so he hadn't banished her. But again, in the mood of genuine regret, he is saying that I'm responsible for the neglect of my wife, and I'm responsible for the course of action that resulted in Dhruva leaving. So the phrase Mahakavi, it can be applied to both Dhruva as well as Suniti. So when applied to Suniti, then Maharaj Uttanpad is saying that I even banished my wife, who is Mahakavi, my highly qualified wife. I banished her. Once Dhruva had left home, the king was only meditating upon Dhruva. So the Acharya say that he had forgotten about his attachment to Suruchi and Uttama. So this is laying the foundation for Narad's mercy to come on Maharaj Uttanpad. So one of the reasons that Narad Muni is engaging Maharaj Uttanpad in conversation is to see that where does he stand. If Maharaj Uttanpad had said something else like this naughty boy of mine has left, then Narad Muni would probably have said, okay, best of luck, and gone away. But seeing that the heart of Maharaj Uttanpad is filled with genuine regret, that attracts the mercy of Narad Muni. So Prabhupada says that according to Manusmriti, one should never desert his wife and children. In a case where wife and children are disobedient and do not follow the principles of home life, they're sometimes given up. But in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, this was not applicable because Dhruva was very mannerly and obedient. Moreover, he was a great devotee. Such a person is never to be neglected. Yet the king was obliged to banish him. Now he was very sorry. Okay, so I'll stop over here. We are almost out of time. Anybody has any concluding thoughts? Okay, if not, we'll end here. Vanchakalpatarubhayaschit kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thai Gaur Premanand. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you.